I did want to give my thoughts on the PS5 event Sony had on Thursday, June the 11th. I'm sure by now everyone's already seen the console itself, but for anyone who hasn't, well, here you go. Alright, well let's go ahead and get it started and I'll tell you what I thought. So to start their show off, for some reason Sony decided to kick it off with saying GTA 5 is going to be coming to PS5. Don't get me wrong, it's a great game, but at this point it's like 7 years old. I mean, the game does still sell well, and I'm sure Rockstar gave Sony a pretty penny to showcase it on here, so I'm sure there's a good reason it's there. The game showed next was Spiderman Miles Morales. I still haven't played Spider-Man for PS4, but everything I've heard about it was all really good and it received a lot of critical acclaim. So I definitely think an announcement like this was definitely smart. There were many reports that this game was going to be DLC or a major expansion for Spider-Man PS4, but I believe the Sony CEO came out and said that it is its own game, not necessarily a full sequel, but kind of a side story. Again though, it's still fairly early and this game just got announced, so they'll release more information on it in the future. Next was Gran Turismo 7. Start your engines, vroom vroom, go fast, another racing game. Not my type of game, but somebody out there is gonna love it. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart was announced. Now I haven't played a Ratchet and Clank game to date, but for me this is actually one of the cooler showcases I felt like they had. The whole dimensional usage aspect of it looks really cool. You can definitely tell the Sony CEO went around to all of his studios and said, hey, I need one of you to make a game that really utilizes the fact that we have solid state drives in our consoles now. Shown next was a game called Project Athia. The game looked really cool, but it's a Square Enix game, so I hate to say it, but I don't think anyone's going to see that game for a long time, if ever. If it does come out, I definitely think that's a game that you probably won't see for another 2 or 3 years, so I would definitely put that one on the shelf and think about it maybe more down the line. The game Returnal looked pretty interesting to me. I mean, it looks very much like a Groundhog Day, Edge of Tomorrow, weird kind of spacey shooter, which I kind of dig. My hope for that game is that they try to lean more into the horror and less the shooty stuff, but we'll see. The next 4 announcements were pretty meh for me. You got a Sackboy sighting in the game Sackboy: A Big Adventure. Then you got the game Destruction All-Stars, of which to me just looks like Rocket League 2.0. You got Kenna Bridge of Spirits, of which for some reason I was getting some major cameo vibes, which was a Xbox 360 launch title. Maybe the most memed on game from the showcase was a game called Goodbye Volcano High, and looks kind of like a drama, soapy-ish game about dinosaurs going to high school. Yeah. Next they showed the newest Oddworld game. Never a franchise I ever really got into, but seeing one of those guys say the F word for me was pretty funny, so it has that. For me personally, maybe the most disappointing reveal I saw was finally seeing some gameplay for the game Ghostwire Tokyo. When I initially heard about this game, I thought it was going to be a horror game, but it turns out it's a first-person kind of action fighting game, of which is just something I'm not really looking for. I'm pretty disappointed after seeing that one. Coming off of the disappointment of seeing Ghostwire Tokyo's gameplay, they showed like 7 or 8 games in a row that really started to get me worried about the event. You had Jet the Far Shore, Godfall, Solar Ash, Hitman 3, Astro's Playroom, Little Devil Inside, NBA 2K21, and Bugsnax. Then you started to get to the meat and potatoes of the entire event. You got to see the reveal of a remake for the game Demon's Souls, which of course is the game that set the framework for games like Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Sekiro. It was definitely one of the highlights for many people for the entire event. Then you got the game Deathloop, of which I'm still not quite sure what that game is. All I know is it looks styled after Dishonored. Definitely my favorite reveal of the event was Resident Evil 8. Definitely looks like they're taking the franchise into a completely new direction, with the very Van Helsing vibes, with giant pointy castles and werewolves. I don't know what the heck they're doing with those games. The game Pragmata was announced. This is the game where I think I heard that the writer for it was one of the original writers for some of the older Dead Space games. Now, me as someone who is a huge fan of the OG Dead Space games, this reveal didn't really do anything for me. Other than the main character's suit, there really isn't anything here that reminds me anything of Dead Space, so I don't know if they were hoping or banking on trying to get some Dead Space fans to come over to that, but they'd have to show me something else for me to get interested. Final game reveal at the Sony event was Horizon Forbidden West. This, of course, is the sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn for the PlayStation 4. Now, this was a super pretty cinematic trailer, and there was no release date announced, but my best guess is probably the latter end of next year. Now, if you haven't heard, obviously the biggest news taken away from this event is the actual console reveal for PlayStation 5. Sony is most definitely going with a very futuristic look for their console. Part of me actually likes the design. I think it's really neat and super clean, so the look of it actually doesn't bother me. I think it's very nice. But even the first time I saw it, my initial thought was, damn, that console looks huge. And people online have done comparisons just looking at the USB port on it, and based on the size of the USB port, it's going to be by far maybe the tallest console to date, of which for somebody like me who's a video game collector and has maybe 14 to 15 consoles already, space is already a problem, so I don't look forward to trying to find a place to put that thing. I can already tell horizontal isn't going to work, so it's going to have to stand vertically. There's nowhere else I'm going to be able to put it. Alright, well there was my thoughts on the Sony presentation for PS5. Overall, I thought it was a really strong showing. My favorite takeaways from it were Resident Evil 8, the Demon's Souls remake, Ratchet and Clank, Spiderman Miles Morales, lastly, the console itself. Sony just fired off a salvo, and now we just gotta wait for Xbox to respond with their July event.